Good evening from Bangkok, Thailand. This is Big Joe from Big Joe's Pondering, and I have an interesting topic tonight to talk to you about. But first, please like, subscribe, share, and bang the notification bell, and share with your family, your friends. Please pass the video out. And today's an interesting video. I was coming across this news article in the Wall Street Journal. It talks about Wisconsin's warning on election bets intensifies fight with prediction markets. So basically, a strong legal battle between state regulators and sites like Kalshi and Polymarket are heating up ahead of the midterm elections. In the old days, you just have to worry about sports betting. Now we're talking about betting on politics. So the summary of this article in the Wall Street Journal is the Wisconsin Election Commission pretty much warned that voters cannot legally cast a ballot in elections they have bet on. Prediction market platforms, Kalshi accused the Wisconsin Commission of active voter suppression. Of course, the gambling sites want you to bet on this. The Wisconsin Commission said that it is unable to police bets placed on prediction market platforms. Now, do you think citizens should be allowed to make bets on elections? It's a sticky subject. It's really a sticky subject. So I want to break down this article a little bit. And the source is the Wall Street Journal. Brian Hildebrand pretty much was glad when Wisconsin officials recently warned the voters that voters can't legally cast a ballot in an election they bet on. Now, people bet on sports teams, whether it's the NFL football, whether it's soccer, NBA, college basketball, hockey, baseball. So the question is, do you feel you should have the right to bet on an election? This 39-year-old Milwaukee resident sees the prospect of people betting on elections as a perversion of democracy, especially in a swing state like Wisconsin, where a lot is at stake. Now, I can understand this gentleman's concern about betting. I can understand his point. The fact that our elections are also nail biters make it much worse. Hildebrand, who is basically a software developer, the electoral process is not one about greed, and this introduces direct financial incentive, no matter how small, into that process. I can see his point because these big sites can get insider tips. They can sway elections and sway people. So so far I agree. The warning by the Wisconsin Election Commission last week opened a new front in the escalating legal battle between prediction markets and the state regulators fighting to ban them. Kalshi is the country's biggest prediction market operator by trading volume. And they basically, the betting site, they're one of the biggest in the world, immediately shot back and accused the commission of active voter suppression. Know that it has hundreds of thousands of users in the state. So the next day, the company announced the launch of a midterm elections hub that it said would show real-time election forecasts based on how its users are betting. Only Kalshi's users can bet in the markets tied to Wisconsin elections, including who will win the gubernatorial race or become attorney general. Now, here's a screenshot from Kalshi's midterm election hub, which it recently launched. And actually, I can't post it. When the channel gets bigger, I'll purchase some software. I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking at the screenshot. And they say, like, for example, Republicans have a 56% chance to control the Senate. Now, just because these percentages have been wrong in the past, but they give a script. It's basically giving us. They're letting you know, because I'm looking at the chart right now. They're letting you know right now what the percentages, what are the chances. They have the state, each state, red state, blue state, purple state. So they have an interactive map, and Polymarket has the same thing. I don't have theirs up at the moment. With control of both the U.S. Senate and the House in play, the midterms election are set to be in the first in which prediction markets play a starring role. So a lot of people, and especially people who bet, will look at these sites. Look, when you run a sports book, money moves the market, right? Whether it's the stock market or sports books. So, for example, if you're, let's say the Buffalo Bills are playing the Miami Dolphins, and the Bills are favored by 7 points on the Dolphins' home field, what is Vegas telling you? For example, they're basically telling you the Buffalo Bills are a better team, even though they have to go down South Florida and play the Dolphins. Now, that line will move as the money moves, right? The same thing here with betting. How, for example, I just told you about how that big betting site, for example, gives the Republicans a 56% chance of Senate control. As money moves, that percentage is going to move. And I'm sure, look, big money players can get inside results on election. I'm sure people leak, political consultants leak, and analysts who get information leak. So Polymarket is another one. Polymarket is the world's largest decentralized prediction market platform where users can trade and share on outcomes of real-world events. And they can also events basically using cryptocurrency, so they can put real money behind opinions. Basically, Polymarket is a platform that creates crowdsourced probabilities for breaking news, politics, sports, cryptocurrency, even geopolitics. So let me give you an example how Polymart works. Every market revolves around a specific question with two possible outcomes. Like for example, in 2026, will Bitcoin reach 200,000? So what they'll do, they'll take those share of bettors and how the market's moving, and they'll give a prediction on it. The same thing can be done with election outcomes, because I'm telling you, insider information is going to flow. It will flow to the power players, the big money bettors, and these betting sites will use that. Everything is on the table as far as gambling goes. Now, you can go look on these websites as far as who's the favorite to secure the Republican nomination in 2028. Also, who's the favorite to secure the Democratic nomination. Right now, basically, the Democrats are favored to get the House, and Republicans are favored to keep the Senate. So, all right, the operators of the market basically say they channel the wisdom of crowd to forecast outcomes. Prediction markets come to the scene in a big way after correctly forecasting President Trump's victory in 2024, in the 2024 presidential election cycle. While traditional poll-based models deem the race as a toss-up. Basically, old school polling hasn't been accurate as it used to be. Now, there'll be another video done on that. But some fear interested parties could place big bets on the site to give the impression a particular candidate is leading and sway voters. I just told you that, basically. Yes, that can happen. If someone places $1 million bet, for example, in the midterms, that can sway the percentages. Yes, as money moves, the market moves. Just like in Wall Street, on Wall Street, the same thing for betting sites. Insider trading has also become a concern. And I just did a video on this about Congress insider trading. After high profile cases emerge of people profiting off their knowledge of government information, others say elections and betting shouldn't be mixed for similar reasons. I agree with that. It is dangerous. Even when last year, when Trump invaded Venezuela, well, I shouldn't say when they went into Venezuela, a spec op team, they basically took in the Venezuelan president. There was some people, there was some military people in the military had insider information, and they bet on that. And guess what? They got in trouble. They were disciplined. So sometimes with political insiders who maybe are inside of campaigns, maybe they're big time donors to Republicans or Democrats, they can sway the market. They can place a bet and they can mess up the public. The public can look at, oh man, my candidate's not going to win. Maybe I shouldn't vote. The market says 90% for the other candidate. It's the Democratic candidate that's going to win the governorship in Wisconsin. Maybe I shouldn't vote. Vice versa. So, like I said, I'm going to repeat this. Insider trading has also become a concern after high-profile cases emerged of people profiting off their knowledge of government information. Others say elections and betting shouldn't be mixed for similar reasons. I get that. I just repeated that. And I agree, actually. A very strong argument can be made that people ought to be voting based on who's the best candidate for the position and not on how much money they will make, said Ann Jacobs, a Democratic appointee on the Wisconsin Commission. Yeah, in a perfect world, yeah. But there's so many other things we can go down a rabbit trail on, but we're focusing on this article here. The Wisconsin Commission statement cites state law disqualifies people from voting in an election where they have placed a bet or wager. See, that can be controversial. Even though I think it's dangerous, it's like saying, so if I bet in a football game, obviously elections are more serious than football, but if I place a bet saying I take Miami +7, I believe. I don't think they'll beat the Bills, but I think they'll cover the spread should the game not be played. Now, again, I understand that elections are more serious than a sport, but this could cause some legal battles. Language that the commission said it believes encompasses events-based contracts. Wisconsin is among many states that have taken the position that bets on the prediction markets amount is illegal gambling, with many saying it should be subject to state regulation and taxes. So some say if people bet, I've heard one theory, and this is not in the article, but that, hey, charge people a tax if they bet. See, now you're trampling on. See, here's the problem. I can understand in theory, I agree with a lot of this article so far, but also people's personal freedom. Kalshi and Polymarket dispute that. They basically now they're giving their side of the story. The two biggest betting sites basically saying they offer. Oh, actually, Bet365 is big too, but that's not in this article. So they're basically saying they offer event contracts that are regulated by the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, the CFTC, run by Trump appointee Michael Segal, has sued states on behalf of prediction market platforms. The multi-state legal battle is likely to end up in the Supreme Court. So Rick Hillslip, Kalshi's general counsel, said the company is having internal discussions about how to react if other states follow Wisconsin's lead. Wisconsin is essentially threatening to prosecute or disenfranchises its own citizens for legal conduct. So again, do you think people should be able that who are going to vote allowed to bet? So Wisconsin is trying to get ahead of this. A Polymarket spokesman said Wisconsin state statement runs counter to the CFTC's establishment framework for regulatory prediction markets. Polymarket has a data partnership basically with the Dow Jones, the publisher of the Wall Street Journal. Other states have language in their laws similar to Wisconsin, suggesting the issue could spread to Delaware, Texas, and New Jersey are among states where election betting is illegal. So Delaware is a blue state, New Jersey is a blue state, Texas is a big red state. So even Texas doesn't agree with this, according to the Pew Research Center. In New York, for example, voters could have their right to vote challenged at polling stations if they are suspected of having paid for their vote or betting on the result of an election. This could be required to take a bribery oath swearing that they haven't made or become involved in any bet or wager depending on the result of this election. So what they're afraid of is people, voter suppression, people getting insider information and placing large bets. A judge earlier this month rejected Cowshire's bid to block New York from subjecting it to its gambling laws, but such wins are temporary, and prediction markets are still available in most states. In Wisconsin, where officials haven't won an injunction against Kalshi, it is unclear, basically, whether voters are going to, will face any consequences for election bets. So here's the other question on prediction markets, because how are you going to track all this? You're going to make them sign an affidavit saying, hey, why did you didn't bet, right? Wisconsin, despite its warning, Wisconsin's election commission has noted in a statement it isn't able to police bets, bingo, on prediction market platforms. People lie all the time. This is because now you're going to get, if you want to track everyone's who's betting, now you're getting the people's personal freedom. Yeah, in a perfect world, I understand where Wisconsin's coming from and Texas is coming from. But you know what? You're also infringing on people's personal freedom. At the same time, yes, there could be insiders that have information about, whether it's, because how when they poll who's winning, the Republican or the Democrat, whether it's a senator or Congress in a congressional district or presidential election, they do a lot of these campaigns. These politicians and these parties do a lot of internal polling. So there's likely a non-zero chance the courts will decide. Polymarket and Kalshi, the betting platforms. Don Mills, the Republican chair of the Wisconsin Election Commission. Our statements on this are designed to inform voters and raise awareness that if you bet in an election and vote in a contest, you could compromise your ability to vote. And again, I see both sides in this. It's a sticky issue. This article is a very, very sticky issue. Am I betting, Jeff? No, I am not. I don't bet in political elections. I did a lot. That's not true. I bet in the presidential elections in the past. But they were small and I had no insider information. But as far as congressional and Senate, no. And have I done it recently? No. So this could affect a lot of things. It's interesting because I see, like I said, the states a lot like Texas and Wisconsin, what they're trying to say. But I also see people taking advantage of the system. And, with big wigs, big sharks, big fish coming in with $1 million. Maybe they donate to a Republican campaign or a Democrat campaign. They have some insider information. They have some internal polling information that the public doesn't have. This is a problem. And just like I said in the last video, in stock trading, by insider trading in Congress is a problem. You know what? I understand, but there's all sorts of insider trading going. If you want to hit the innocent citizens, you better hit the bigwigs and the politicians on this. So this is an interesting article. It's in the Wall Street Journal. It's an interesting piece, and I have to be honest, I didn't really post the article because you have to have a subscription for I do have a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. So, and like I said, my channel is too small. Eventually, I'm going to get a streaming service if the channel grows big enough. I have people on, but right now it's just me. I'm not a YouTube professional. So, what do you think? Should you be allowed to vote and bet at the same time, or should you be free? If you're going to vote, you shouldn't bet, or you think no, I should be able to do both. It's my personal freedom. That's the question. What do you think? What is your What is your take? Jeff, what do you believe? You know, like, share, subscribe, uh, leave your comments. I guess, I'm libertarian leaning in a lot of things, but I have to be honest. This one here, I can see both. I can see both sides of the argument. I'm flip flopping like a pancake house, but I can see, Texas and Wisconsin's concerns on it because it could sway elections. It could, but then the other side is, well, you're disenfranchising others to vote because the average person doesn't have insider information. They don't have access to internal polls and other. They're not multimillionaires who can just walk. Sometimes if you donate to a candidate you like or a political party, they may have access to some stuff or insiders working the campaign. So tell me what you think. Once again, like, subscribe, share, bang that notification bell. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care. God bless.